Later, Darlington Umoru is in the studio to discuss this. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Veronica.
All right. Now, the issue that has sprung up as a result of this case, a lot of people are concerned about parenting, and they're saying we need to start rethinking parenting, especially when it comes to the millennials. Another issue is the abuse of drugs, which the 21-year-old suspect confessed to using, that they both used, she and her victim used. And that is where I'd like for us to begin, because these days you see visuals of people on social media, young children, young adults as we call them, abusing drugs, alcohol. In fact, there was a video of a guy who was said to have abused drugs, fell off a story, climbed a story building and said he was going to jump. And then when he did, he died. He fell and died. And that is also generating concerns. Recently, the president talked about the fact that, you know, the abuse of drugs is much more dangerous than even the issues surrounding banditry and all of it that we have seen. Talk to us from that point of view, how concerning these developments are for you.
Well, let's start with the issue of parenting. The effect of what we're having today as a result of the offshoot of societal decadence.
Okay.
A lot of problems today, many broken homes.
Is that an excuse?
Parenting of a child takes two, ordinarily,
yes,
to bring up.
Yes.
Properly. If you take a statistics of children who are from broken homes, you will find out that a lot of them are those who had lost it. That initial control and teaching, you know, that direction of what they are meant to be, what the society expects from them. Again, today the society has failed many, particularly the youths. If you look at the case of Chidima, for instance, Chidima is a product of a broken home.
Yes.
The father also died about 2 years ago, 2019, from what we gathered, and today she's living with what looks like an uncle or a guardian.
Whom she adopted as a father.
Whom she had adopted as a father, but that does not make him her biological father.
Absolutely. The
kind of parenting she will get from that man is not exactly the same thing she would have gotten from her biological father, whether you like it or not.
Definitely. Now,
Chidima did say that for those times, particularly when she went out for that outing, she told the man merely that she was going for a job where she was to work as an usher. Now take that into heart and consideration. You see that the man would not have his eyes so much on Chidima's activities. Apparently, that was why he tried to resist the police arrest when the police came, because he was still presuming that Chidima
couldn't have done it.
Yes, was innocent. Now, Chidima allegedly committed that crime, and then got home. Apparently, she wouldn't be the same Chidima that left home the day she left home. For somebody who was involved in whether a fight or whatever it was, and then the other party died, and then she came home with the broken knives and then the blood-stained clothes and kept them, one in the dustbin and the other one somewhere. Her state of mind wouldn't be the same. Absolutely. So if you're a parent, you would have been able to see that she was bothered somehow and then be able to ask certain questions, but all of that weren't there. So it meant that if she were to be with her mother and father, for instance, I'm sure the scenario would have been a bit different, whether you like it or not. Now, the issue of drugs. Why do people need to take drugs? It's simple. Like I taught some security agents in one of the national programs some time ago. Drugs are taken for just one singular purpose, to get high. To get high. And then when you are high on drugs, you'll be able to do those things ordinarily you wouldn't to do you wouldn't be able to do when you're normal, when you're in your normal position. Now, Chidinma at 21 apparently didn't start taking drugs at 21. Now, if she's a 300 level student at Unilag, it meant she did say that she was taught how to, she was brought into the use of drugs by senior students of the same school. So, well, if she was brought into all of that, it meant that she belonged to a clique. She joined a clique of drug users in the school, older, who eventually lured her into taking drugs. Now, she does not only take drugs, she drinks and she also smokes. Well, if she has all of this, apparently you begin to wonder that at what point did this decadence enter her? At what point has all of this been able to influence her? Who and who does she relate with? Now, of course, you will know that drugs dealing brings the drug dealers make the highest money in any other business. A senator in America did say that the drug trade between America and Mexico at a time, what Mexico makes in a year was higher than the entire American budget. What does that tell you? Then we're not talking about places like Cuba. Then we're not talking about some other places. Recently, now, drugs, the use of drugs has advanced beyond the direct usage. Now, a doctor was arrested somewhere in Auchi, Edo State, recently, who was using cookies.
Yes.
To make drugs and sell.
Yes. And
then ordinarily, you would just think that those things were just ordinary cookies you just buy. But those who buy them, her customers know what they are. Beyond that, there are some in some states that are mixed with water. Ordinarily, you think you're buying bottled water, but it's not. Now, the use of tramadol, cocaine, and all of that, at a point in time in this country, nobody knew what they were. Do you know, Veronica, that today some youth go to sock away and sniff it, the smell, and then they get high?
Yes.
Do you know gum, Evostic, can make some of these people get high? And a lot of them, but ordinarily on a show like this, I shouldn't be mentioning them, so that those who are looking at will not even want to go to check out, try out some of those things. But the point today is how much have we been able to checkmate the movement of drugs, the sale of drugs to consumers.
That is where we should begin addressing this
in the world. Now, and so the older ones, or well, the people who introduce the younger ones into some of these drugs, why do they do so? Cigarettes, drinks, when they are not allowed to be advertised, and when you advertise them, you would say that the ages, there are age limitations. Now, Chidinma claims to have been high on drugs, but now she has been involved in, well, she's not guilty yet until the courts says she's guilty. But if you look at the statement she made, the question you want to ask is Chidinma a victim of a setup? Could Chidinma alone would Chidinma alone been able to do what she did?
Perhaps that's why there are investigations going on.
From the evidences found on the body of Usifo. Now, Chidinma claimed that Usifo was also high on drugs. But we have seen the friends and family of Chidinma came out with a statement. And they said they were merely responding to what the police had issued. And what Chidinma had said.
I wouldn't want us to go into the nitty-gritty of the case.
No, we are looking at the drugs, the drug usage now. She admitted that she used drugs. But she also claimed, like what you also said, that Usifo also used drugs. But from what the friends and family had come up with, they said for the Usifo they know, Michael does not use drugs. Now, something is paramount here. The primary suspect has admitted that she used drugs. Now, whether Usifo actually used drugs or not, it is the test now that will prove whether he was also in drugs. But the rate at which our youths are indulging in drugs today is becoming alarming. Now, for criminals, they need drugs. It's not just firearms now. For most of these criminals who get themselves involved in some of these activities, they need drugs. Okay? Whether the armed robbers, whether the kidnappers, whether the terrorists, whoever they may be. But the most alarming part is the involvement of female in the use of drugs today. Is becoming so alarming. The population of female, the statistics.
What do you think could be at the heart of this, especially in the involvement of females in it? Is it something kind of a peer pressure? What really is driving, this consistency? You have
answered the question and you are still asking me again.
Is that part of it? Peer pressure?
It's peer pressure and nothing more. Define it and break it down. I told you about what Chidinma herself said.
Yeah.
That
her seniors.
How do you define that? Peer pressure.
But she could make a decision. She could have made a decision.
You said pressure.
Under pressure, you can still make a decision.
You can still make it, but as a youth, how much decision would you be able to make when the pressure is much on you? Particularly when you find yourself in a higher institution or any institution or a gathering where you want to belong. It could be done at parties. It is done in schools. Growing up for me, like you rightly said, I had a group of friends. I attended a boys' school. I had a group of friends who were on drugs, who were using drugs, talking about cannabis here now. I had followed them to certain places because we were very close friends. But up until this moment, I never got involved. Even the parents of those boys would always say we were one, that we were doing the same thing. But it took their children to explain to them that I was a Jew man. That was what they were calling me.
Right.
But the pressure sometimes will be so high that because you want to belong, you wouldn't be able. That is why as a parent, Veronica, you must watch out for whom your children associate with.
Right.
Do not chase the friends of your children away from your home. Tell your children to bring home their friends. Access them. Before you know whether to break that bond or to allow them to continue with that relationship. Today, peer pressure has done a lot of damage to the youth because drugs today you can find and buy in places. From what we gathered in the case of Chidinma, is such that she was even ordering for them, and the supply was coming to where she was.
Right.
According to the security of that place, who claimed that somebody was bringing those things to her, which meant that she was placing order and they were coming. Internet arrangement. But the challenge here is parents have also failed their children. Parents have also failed their children. One, perhaps, I don't want to consider to economic factor.
Why not?
Yes, because today, in most homes, some parents push their children out to fend for them. Particularly the innocent ladies, the innocent girls. I've seen situations and I've also taught situations where some parents will begin to compare their children with other children. To say, you just sit here every day to ask me for money. You ask me, are you not seeing Lagbaja's daughter, who is your mate? She's riding on a jeep.
Poverty playing a major role.
Well, I don't want to say poverty. That's I generalize it as economic factor, which I don't want to concede to. Poverty does not mean that if you're disciplined, you have to steal, that you have to get involved in some of those things. Whether you like it or not, discipline is eluding us now. There's no discipline in our homes. Many of us don't discipline our children. Many of us go to work from morning. Both parents, father and mother, go to work on daily basis. They leave the children to whose care? That is why you have all kinds of abuses on these children. You leave your children to the care of whom? At the end of the day, these children wander. These children mix up with people. You leave your child with a neighbor What can you tell of that neighbor? How much of discipline does that neighbor have? If that neighbor is involved in drugs, she will start by sending your child to go buy it for her or for him.
And a curious child.
Not just someday you falling in love with the child, you say, why not test this? You give the child a little to test. And then it starts from there, abuse.
So parents, because we need to begin to coast home now, in trying to help their children handle peer pressure, how should they go about it? Because obviously right now, a lot has to be done. So much is eroding us, family values, that structure seems to be eluding us, that structure, and we must have a whole child being brought up. Wholeness is necessary in raising children, because the future of the country is what has been threatened here. Before
the parent, I think it has to start with the government.
How so?
The government owes the citizenry a lot of responsibility in terms of this decadence. Number one, the agencies responsible for the arrest of those who make the sale and who commonize all of this should be up and doing. Government has set up agencies. You have the NDLEA, for instance. Should they just limit the activities to the airports and border points?
Right.
It shouldn't be so. How many times have they been able to go bust places where these things are sold? Do they say they don't know? Do they say they don't know some of this? Cannabis you can find anywhere, in most places. Cannabis is smoked virtually you have places you can say you find, even on the roads, you find people smoking cannabis. Now, if you want to trace where that cannabis was bought, what do you do as a security agent? The first thing is to nab the man who is smoking it. The man will give you a lead to where he bought them, or he bought it, or he has been buying them.
So you follow that chain.
So when you follow that lead, you will get to the man who is retailing them. If you get to the man who is retailing them, you get to the man, that one will take you again to the person who is doing the wholesales. From the wholesales, you get to the man who is either planting or importing them. And so if you follow that chain, you'll be able to reduce access to those drugs. It's not just enough talking about parents now at home. Now, if you begin from that point and you minimize, you cannot eradicate it, forget it.
Okay.
You cannot eradicate the sale of drugs, because drug is the next highest profiteering business. No, it's the first. Not even firearms now. Okay? Now, if you are able to, recently, the CIA, the FBI from America, they did what was it called exactly now, on drugs, where they went when they did a simultaneous attack on drug dealers across the world.
Yeah.
It was done simultaneously. It was arranged by security agents, and in 48 hours they busted places and a lot were recovered. That's the kind of thing we need. Now, if you are able to reduce access, retail access points, then you have been able to make it difficult for those who use them to access them very easily.
Yeah.
Okay, if you are able to reduce that, access. Then you come to parents now. Now, have you been able to identify whom your child is associating with, your peer group? Now, you can really not tell when your child leaves your home and goes to school. Your child leaves you and goes to school and comes back in 3 months. What your child had gotten him or herself involved in.
And that is where building values in the child is key.
It's very important.
Because once you build that value, the child, even though sees the drugs, will know that I should avoid it. That's where I was coming from.
Well, and then the child comes home. How many of us today will even want to look at the changes we are noticing in our children? A child who takes drugs in school for 3 months, comes home to stay home for 3 weeks, will take drugs before going back. Definitely, because once you have started it and you've gotten addicted, there's no way you can stay for 2 weeks without wanting a pint or a pinch of it. It's not possible. And then beyond that, what is our religious leaders doing?
Right.
People who gather in most religious homes, you find people, how much of this is being preached?
Right.
Then again,
finally, because we have to go.
The body of the government that is the agency that is out there to make announcement on behalf of the government. What's it called now?
National Drug Law Enforcement?
No. That's the one in charge of drug. There's an agency in charge that speaks for. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Choice of words, please.
Yes. That agency is supposed to be out. How many billboards have you found outside that will talk about abuse of drugs? And when you get go to homes where
orientation agency.
National, God bless you, Veronica. God bless you. National Orientation Agency. Your elements are always very high up there.
All right.
Now, beyond that,
we have to go. Okay. Because we have a commercial.
It's the involvement of everybody, finally.
Everybody, yeah.
Yes.
Social commentator Darlington Umoru, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's tell you now that the views and reaction of all our guests are theirs and have no connection with TVC News. That's all on TVC Breakfast this morning. Join us again for another edition tomorrow at 7.
You always deny
To stay safe. Up next is